So, dudes, it's your boy Psycho, aka DoSniper98. If you recall, back in November, I put out a video called How to Use Every 5-Star in the Game that featured a quick overview of all the 5-star servants in Fate Grand Order who were available for summoning up until that point in the game, and some general tips on how to use each and every one of them. Now, 8 months later, we've gotten a ton more 5-star servants, which subsequently means that the video I just mentioned is obviously a little out of date. And because Aniplex is probably jerking themselves off over delaying the first anniversary content update for the sake of Anime Expo, because fuck NA, we want our advertising money, I've decided to join in on the celebration, so to say, and put out an updated sequel of sorts to my previous video. Again, the same disclaimers here apply as usual. This video is not intended to be a tier list and is only meant to give you a general idea of how to use whatever servant I'm talking about. If you'd like more detailed explanations of each of the servants featured in this video, check out my FGO how-to video series where I make a meme out of all the servants who happen to be featured. You can check out the playlist for those videos in the description. And in case you don't find a servant you're looking for in that playlist, or if you just don't like memes for whatever reason, then check out the servant spotlight videos made by Soberoni from GNA Reviews. Anyways, we've got a lot of 5 stars to check out here, so let's get started. And just like before, we're going to go over all of them by class, starting with the Sabers. Penguin King is a general use Saber. She's great for battles that don't matter, which is a perfect representation of what DW thinks of Type Moon's poster girl. Use her for any fight that isn't a boss fight, since Saber has a skill set that's a holdover from 2015, and apparently DW's even forgotten that she exists. Well, until this year, that is. She's great for farming though, thanks to her charisma and mana burst, and farming is pretty important in this game, so at least she's useful for something. Level either charisma or mana burst first, depending on your preference for Shiro's waifu, whether you want her to be a party support or a burst DPS Saber. Fuck Instinct, and pray that DW won't be fucktards and actually gives her Avalon sometime later on this year. Stick her with LZO, Sumo, CEs with MP generation rate buffs, or her own max bind CE for general battles, or anything that has starting MP charge for farming. And if you call her Altria, I'll fucking slap you. Popsicle Girl is also another general use Saber who's great for battles that don't matter, and thanks to a certain Japanese comic memester on Pixiv, she's become a staple of FGO gacha memes around the world, so I guess nothing else matters. Like Kawasumi Ayako, Sid Meier Alter is also suitable for anything that isn't a boss fight, and a great farming Saber with capabilities of becoming a crit Saber once she gets her last interlude. Level Crest of the Star first, then Tactics, then Natural Body, but once her third interlude comes out and buffs her second skill, start leveling Natural Body over Tactics instead. LZO, Victor, Sumo, her max bond CE, Atumbra, MP generation buff CEs, crit damage CEs, or crit star weight buff CEs are all viable options on ET, or the usual K-scope or starting MP charge CEs for farming. And remember to keep calm, destroy bad civilization, wiggle, and meme on. Chronic Tuberculosis Girl is a crit Saber who's like Fat Albert in that she has a Lancer deck. She also happens to exist only because of a gag manga and debuts in a joke event, and lore-wise she should technically be one of the weakest servants in existence or something like that, and yet she's more viable than Fate's most iconic character. In a game where skimpily clad lollies with magic wands and fucking Lovecraftian tentacle hentai bullshit are apparently stronger than bulging bags of sweaty muscles and testosterone, I'm going to consider this perfectly acceptable. Like I said, Pinky is a crit Saber who can be her own crit star generator, or for someone else, just not for more than one person at a time, since that's someone else's job. She's a burst damage Saber who first generates stars, then collects those stars she's generated or by other teammates to do massive damage in one turn with her skills that are damage and crit damage focused. Cherry Vanilla also has some viability in boss slaying thanks to her quick mana burst and her evade as a survival skill, and she's also very useful for those farming runs where you're dealing with Lancer or Berserker bosses who have lots of HP. Level Shukuchi first, then Mind's Eye, then Weak Constitution, and give her Imaginary Around, Launch Order, Sumo, Crit Damage CEs, MP Generation CEs, or MP Damage CEs to make her single target MP even stronger. 2030 or Be Elegant aren't bad either if you just want her to be a star gen for another teammate. Mordy is like your dad, an AoE Saber who's mainly great at general battles or farming, and not really much else. You should be seeing a pattern here, I think. That is the pattern that anyone who's got instinct as a skill is utter trash. Daddy Problems Girl is at least a better farming Saber than her dad, at least, since her third skill, Secret of Pedigree, is what we call a battery, or a skill that directly charges her MP gauge. It also provides her with a degree of utility in boss fights, like a debuff clear, and a one-turn 50% defense buff at max rank to help her tank stuff better. She's also got an anti-Saber face gimmick tied to her MP, which makes her a fun meme to use in any Saber face challenge fights that involve you fighting against her dad in any of her forms. So if Lancer Artoria or Lancer Alter or MHXA ever show up anywhere, you know what to do. Level Secret of Pedigree first for its utility, then Mana Burst for damage, and fuck Instinct, it should have been a Guts skill instead or something because that's what she has in Fate Epoch. Any CE that's good on her dad is also good on her too, minus the MP generation CEs because Daddy's Girl has a much worse MP generation stat. So instead, give her MP damage CEs if you're throwing her at one of her dads in a challenge fight somewhere. Waifu'nero is proof that DW is fully aware of how FGO players think of their favorite servants. What do you mean that you play this game for gameplay? Just like a true waifu, Nina Williams is a support Saber who will give a teammate any buff that they really need as long as it's between an attack buff, a star gen buff, a heal, a defense buff, or an MP generation buff. So in this sense, she's like a general support utility Saber who's got a strong bit of everything in exchange for being able to buff only one teammate at a time, as opposed to party-wide support servants. She can even buff herself to turn herself into Super Waifu 2 for 3 turns, as she's got a single target MP and can pack a serious punch when she needs to. Level flowers on Earth, then love to the people, then stars in heaven. If you want to make her an even better support, give her 2030 for Star Gen or her Max Bond CE for Arts Memes, otherwise give her Formal Craft, MP Generation Buff CEs, or MP Damage CEs, or just Sumo as usual. Shiki Unni is a tank Saber who's got the same voice actor as Jean. Coincidence? She has one of the highest HP ratings in the game and has one of the best self-heal skills in the game as well in exchange for having one of the lowest attack ratings for a 5-star servant in the game, which, coupled with the fact that her insta-kill gimmick is really only useful for farming, causes a lot of people to call her trash. She's not, by the way. Those people just somehow forget the fact that she's got 2 self-attack buffs and has a passive that gives her a free 6% buff to all her command cards, which makes her a tank with decent 3-turn burst damage instead. She also has a bit of party support too because her MP has a party debuff clear. And if people say that Saber Shiki is trash because she has no boss fight utility, neither do most of the other Sabers we've been discussing so far. Yet I don't see any of you waifu fags calling any of them trash, well except maybe for Artoria. Level Yin Yang first if you want to use her as a tank, or level Mystic Eyes and Cloud Shine first for better DPS and better farming efficiency. Give her Formal Craft or Sumo for better damage, or health regen or health increase CEs like Golden Millennium Tree for better tankiness and sustainability. MP generation CEs aren't bad either since Kimono Shiki has good MP charge gain and she can spam party debuff clears in case you're getting debuffed a lot. Taunt CEs are also viable on Shiki if you need to buy your team time to get everyone set up in a fight, as is 2030 for more crit stars because why not. Done with the Sabers, onto the Archers. Zashu Man is such an asshole that he gives the game the middle finger and does single target damage with an AoE MP. His gimmick is that he deals more damage with his MP to most servants in the game thanks to the weak to Enema Elish trait, except for these servants on screen. Post MP upgrade interlude, he gets a free 30% MP buff with his own MP because why the hell not, along with the upgraded AoE scaling, which roughly means that Enema Elish becomes an AoE nuke. The only bad thing about it, really, is that its animation takes too frickin' long. Other than his MP nuke, Gil is a crit archer and can even generate his own crit stars with the Braid Chain thanks to all his command cards having high hit counts. And he's got a crit gather skill and one of the strongest crit passive buffs in the game to back it all up. TLDR, outside of specific situations like if he's being counterclassed, there's nowhere that Kirei's boyfriend can't just stroll through raffle stomping everything. He's good at boss fights when you're up against servant bosses, and good at farming if you can put up with how frickin' long his MP animation is. But he's motherfucking Gilgamesh, so fuck you, I guess. Level Charisma, then Collector, especially when it gets upgraded to Treasury of Babylon later, and then Golden Rule, and give him LZO, Victor, Sumo, MP Damage CEs, and starting MP Charge CEs for farming. Yandere Goddess Girlfriend Simulator isn't the actual servant, it's the teddy bear that shows up with her. Yeah, that teddy is her boyfriend. Any questions? Ask DW. Artie is a crit archer who, like Arrogant Fuckboy, also has the same rank of passive crit buff, but she's also got an extra crit damage buff in Mind's Eye False to give her some extra crit punch, though she doesn't have a star pull skill to compensate that, and she's arc-based, not buster-based. And like Arrogant Fuckboy, she has some capacity of generating her own crit stars, but unlike him, she has excellent MP charge gain and can spam it to a fair degree since she's got an Arts MP. Penny's Goddess can also be a tank archer, having a ton of HP, an evade skill, and a 50% defense buff for one turn, though she'll need pills to keep her going. And in an arts team and post-MP upgrade interlude, Plot Goddess becomes a DPS arts stall archer, perfect for some random gorilla you meet outside a random city in the middle of the fucking desert. But just remember that none of this matters if you have a decent Uriel. Level Affection of the Goddess, then Mind's Eye False, then Whimsical Bond. And give her Fomalcraft, Another Ending, Sumo, MP Damage CEs, MP Generation CEs, Taunt CEs, Atumbra, or 2030. Bollywood boy number 1 is a fucking edgelord because Japanese weeaboos evidently love their edgelord husbandos. He's really good at farming and general battles. He's got a very high attack rating, an MP charge skill that conveniently makes good use of your limit broken imaginary elements that you're forced to use because you don't have K-scope, and a mana burst that has better scaling with his MP because of the fact that it's split up into 2 different buffs. His MP also has a decent insta-kill chance attached to it to make your farming a little bit easier, and he can also fit into arts teams thanks to his triple arts deck in case you're in need of a DPS archer in an arts team. He also has extra insta-kill chance against divine enemies, but most of them are either servants or boss type mobs, so good luck trying to insta-kill them. You might get lucky once or twice though, who knows. Just don't bring Curry Boy number 1 to any boss fights since he has no survivability other than an MP regen skill and absolutely no support skills whatsoever, unless you count Clairvoyance as a support skill. Level Mana Burst, then Fortunate Hero, then Clairvoyance, though honestly you can just level Mana Burst and call it a day. And give him Sumo, Formalcraft, or Another Ending for general DPS, or LZO or MP damage CEs if you want to make the most out of MP spamming in an arts team. Okay, done with the archers, Lancers next. But wait, there's more! Archer Saber is a top-tier arts meme who's better in a different class as a joke than she is in her original class. Like, seriously, what the fuck, DW? Not making enough money or shit? Like, Sony or Nasu got you by the balls or something? Swimsuit Penguin is like a mini waiver in that she provides a decent defense and attack buff for the whole party, but she's also got her own arts buff and a big ol' health regen skill which is exactly the same as the one that Wojcicki has, except just with a different name. And remember that MP refund gimmick that OG Saber and Salter have? She has it here too, and it's way more useful since her MP is also an arts card on top of it, and it also has a 70% chance to MP drain her target, giving her some utility as a stall archer too. So she's a somewhat tanky stall archer who can spam her MP and has some decent party support. And who said Saber was a trash waifu, huh? Probably the people who fucking hate Shiro, actually. Just remember that at least he's better than C. Level Summer Splash for the arts buff, and then either Beach Flower or Protection of the Beach House, depending on your preference. And give her Fomalcraft, Another Ending, Sumo, Atumbra, or MP Generation or Damage CEs. Now onto the Lancers. Thigh Goddess is what happens when someone in DW's management staff is a huge fucking fanboy of a certain character and decides to direct all the game's resources into making his waifu a reality. Luckily for that person, he's hardly the only such fanboy. Shisho is a nuke lancer who specializes in killing divine or undead enemies thanks to her third skill, meaning that she's super effective against these servants you see here. She can also be a bit of a crit lancer with her first skill and a bit of a crit star generator, but by far though her biggest utility is her second skill, which gives her another teammate a 50% quick buff at max rank. But Niente with her own first skill at max rank 2 does the same thing, and for the whole party too, so. Of note, her MP puts a virtually guaranteed stun on her target every time it lands, so keep this in mind whenever an enemy's ready to blow their MP at you, and she happens to have her MP ready. Level Primeval Rune first, then Wisdom of Dunskach, and Godslayer. And give Altera's alter ego your choice of imaginary round, sumo, launch order, MP damage CEs, star weight CEs, or 2030. Or MP starting charge CEs because her MP gain is fucking trash.
Watching it end again and again.
Bollywood boy number 2 is not a fucking edgelord, surprisingly. Quite the contrary, he's a bro. A bro who hits hard and crits hard just to get you some motherfucking bread from a random village somewhere. He's a crit lancer with decent star gem by default, and it gets even better if he uses his third skill, which not only gives him MP charge, but also gives him extra star gen and more crit damage, which equates to Karna being able to generate a ton of crit stars if he gets a quick chain or a brave chain with both of his quick cards in it. And naturally, with the 25% MP charge, Curry Boy number 2 is great for farming, and he's got his own mana burst to spice things up, which he shares with his edgelord of a brother. He's especially good against anyone or anything that's divine, since his MP deals extra damage against divine targets, which includes Arjuna. Karma, bitch! He also has some utility in boss fights or challenge fights with his first skill, which seals an enemy's MP and reduces their debuff resistance so that it's easier for your team to stack debuffs on them. And having the highest attack value out of all the lances in the game certainly doesn't hurt his overall effectiveness in boss fights either. Level Mana Burst or Uncrowned Arms Mastership first, depending on whether you want Karna to land bigger crits or if you want his MP to be chunkier, and level Discernment of the Poor last. The only thing that he's lacking is a crit star pull skill to round out his crit lancer role, so the CE that fits with him the best is Designated Seal Enforcer or any other CE that improves star pull weight. Other than that, LZO, Victor, Atumbra, Sumo, Launch Order, Be Elegant, MP Generation buff CEs, and even MP damage CEs if you're up against divine enemies, and starting MP charge CEs for farming.
Close to the edge of something so perfect.
Yandere Schoolgirl Girlfriend Simulator heard that you needed a crit star weight buff. Don't worry, you didn't need anyone else anyway. Lusamine is a support lancer who's got pretty good star gen and can basically make one enemy never be able to crit with her primeval rune skill. If you have other teammates who also have MP damage reduction skills, you can stack them together and make it so that the enemy's MP basically does no damage, though by itself, it might not be enough. Wincest Girl also has the distinction of being one of the only, if not the only servant to have a targetable crit star pull buff in Hero's Bridesmaid. And in case you have short-term memory loss like me, there was someone else whose kit lacks a crit star pull buff, right? It already was pretty good before, but recently it got a buff in JP where not only did the crit star pull buff get a massive fucking upgrade to the point where it's like a mini Eternal Arms Mastership skill, but it's also got a 40% crit buff now on top of it all, just for good measure. Now suddenly Bryn can turn anyone into a mini Lancelot or a mini Raiko. And best of all, the Jalter and Bryn Kanajo x Kanajo combo is no longer just a meme anymore. And on top of everything else, Bryn's got good MP charge gain and can go ham too thanks to her own mana burst and her Brynhilder's Beloved gimmick tied to her MP. Anyone, usually male servants, who's got the Bryn's Beloved trait will take extra damage from Bryn if she stabs them in the crotch, which means that these servants on screen now should avoid socializing with her at all costs. Her MP also provides a party star gen buff, 30% pre-interlude and 50% post-interlude, which means that anyone with decent star gen will turn into a crit star engine for 3 turns. And then Bryn can use her third skill on someone to consolidate those stars onto them, and you can kind of see what Bryn's whole game plan is. Level Hero's Bridesmaid first, since that's her most unique skill that gives her a niche that basically only she can fulfill as a servant. Then Mana Burst, then Primeval Rune. And give her LZO, Sumo, Launch Order, MP Gen CEs or MP Damage CEs for offense, and 2030 Be Elegant or her own Max Spawn CE for additional support. Like her OG self, Lancer Saber should be used in general battles and farming because she's not that great in fights that actually matter, despite being damn near a literal goddess, at least in the story. What's with DW and making servants who are supposed to be overpowered as fuck story-wise trash in actual gameplay? But she is a literal goddess at farming. She's got Mana Burst, Charisma, a battery skill with 50% MP charge at max rank, an MP overcharge refund just like OG Sabers, and a 1.1% MP charge gain stat. In case you need that to be put into perspective for you, if you've ever used Kintoki Rider at all, you'll know how insane his charge gain is. Just imagine that on Lancer Artoria too, just a little bit worse since she has one less hit on her quick cards. She also has an Invul Pierce tied to her MP, so don't worry about anything surviving her MP if she's strong enough. She's also pretty decent at Star Gen too. If you're not using her for farming for some reason, she has a ton of health, so use her as a tank if you need to. Given those mana tanks that she's got, this should come as no surprise. Level Blessings from the End of the World first, as battery skills are very important from a farming perspective, then Mana Burst, then Charisma. And give her LZO, Launch Orders, Sumo, MP Gen, or MP Damage CEs for damage, 2030, Be Elegant, or her Max Bond CE for support, and of course, starting MP Charge CEs for farming. Alright, done with the Lancers, now onto the right. Originally, I wasn't planning on including Tama Lancer here, but given the fact that I've already included Saber Archer early in this video, and that Tama is my waifu, and that summer servers are just a month away or something, fuck you, I guess, have some Tama. Tama Lancer is Tama Caster, except she's willing to lewd you. Hakuno? Who's that again? Just like her caster self, Summer Junko is a support servant, just as a Lancer, with Charisma, a Star Gen buff for male teammates, and a guaranteed charm that reduces enemies' defense to soften them up for an attack. She's more of a hybrid support and DPS Lancer though, since she's got an offensive, single target MP. Her third skill has a ton of utility too, such as giving her insane MP charge gain, and Star Gen if she lands an AQQ chain, and an Invul for one turn, but her second and third skills can't be used all willy-nilly since they do have some icky demerits attached to them that can bite you in the ass if you're not careful. Tama Shark does have the potential to be a strong burst DPS thanks to her anti-mail gimmick tied to her MP, and yes, it's basically her kicking someone in the crotch. Hey DW, girls don't like getting kicked in the pussy either, so Tama Lancer should get bonus against all genders. That's sexist! Level Goddess Metamorphosis for all the goddamn effects it has, then Beach Flower, then Midsummer Witchcraft. And give her LZO, Sumo, MP Gen, or MP Damage CEs for damage, Atumbra for crit damage, and Seal Designation Forcer for crit star pull, and 2030, Be Elegant, or Max Bond CE for support. Now, onto the riders. Backs against the wall. Where she's going, she ain't gonna need no God's plan, just a Halloween princess and a level 10 Voyager skill, that's it. Francis is also another god tier farmer thanks to her Pioneer skill, which, surprise surprise, has a 50% battery at max level. Kinda makes a lot of sense if you really think about it. She's also a surprisingly good star generator if she gets a Brave Chain that ends with her quick card, and she's a great burst star gen if she uses her MP and then uses Pioneer the next turn for at least 30 crit stars on one turn. Her Voyager skill also contributes to her SS rank on the farming tier list since it makes everyone else's MPs all that stronger too. She can also reload her MP really quickly if she's got Golden Rule active and collects the stars that she's generated from her own kit to use with her arts cards. Other than farming, use her for general battles as a crit rider. Level Pioneer first for the battery, then Voyager, and then Golden Rule. Use farming CEs with her mainly, like K-Scope or Sumo, or anything else that has at least 50% starting MP charge, or LZO, Victor, or Atumbra for damage outside of farming. But there's nobody else by my side standing with me. Thought Queen is a Victoria's Secret model as a servant, which is probably an insult to Victoria's Secret models. Smug Queen's main utility is a male teammate buffer and an anti-male caster or berserker rider. Once she gets a charisma buff, she'll give her male teammates handjobs, 40% attack buffs at max skill level. And if there's a male caster or berserker boss and she's got Origin Bullet equipped, Marge literally fucks them, as if her MP animation wasn't suggestive enough. And watching her kick cheese at people's faces when she gets her animation update is pretty fun too. Level Charisma, then Charm, then Natural Body, and give her the Origin Bullet strap-on to fuck any male caster. Or you can just use Burning Love Story as an alternative since it helps out with her charm chance. If you don't need Origin Bullet, then LZO, Victor, Sumo, Atumbra, or MP Damage CEs. With our fearless hearts, we could be. Bro Scanner is a heavy offense rider who stampedes people with an MP animation that's suspiciously similar to Darius's. Like Drake, Adult Swim Alex is great at farming, and while he doesn't have a battery skill of his own, he does have a mana burst that has a star gen buff tied to it. So this means that his MP acts very similarly to Drake's in that he can generate around 25 crit stars, assuming that he's attacking a full team. He can also buff the MPs of his teammates, since 2 of his skills together are basically a stronger Voyager skill. But unlike Drake, he's not just a great farmer, but also a heavy offensive support rider who has huge burst damage potential since his entire skill set buffs his damage. And his charisma skill lasts for 3 turns rather than just 1 like Drake's Voyager skill. This makes him a prime plug suit candidate in case you need to buff stack. Level Lightning Conqueror for the mana burst, then charisma, then tactics. And give him LZO, Victor, Sumo, Atumbra, or MP damage CEs, or his max bond CE for additional party support, or, of course, starting MP charge CEs for farming. Uncle Man Diaz is your top tier rider, Dio voice included. He's got the unique distinction of being the only servant in the game who has a buff success rate buff for the whole party, and it's a 40% buff at max level. A reminder that Imperial Privilege is a skill that has a 60% chance of activating its attack and defense buffs. Congratulations, you now see why Dio is top tier. Other than that, Egyptian Gil has a lot of other utilities, like an MP seal, defense down, party MP gauge charge, and a charisma. Speaking of charisma, Beerus also has a Gil-sized ego, so why the fuck doesn't he have charisma A+2? Is it because he's not as big of a fucking douche as Gil is? Is that why? Level protection from Raw first if your waifu is Nero, otherwise level Imperial Privilege, and then charisma. Give him LZO, Victor, Sumo, Atumbra, or MP damage CEs, or his max bond CE for party support if that's what you want him to be. He'd prefer being DPS though, I'd imagine. And with that, we've covered all the riders. Kasger's up next. Spineless whiny bitch is that guy you bled, cried, and sweat over in your rerolls last year. He's also that guy who you always pick from your support list because you don't need anyone else. A 30% attack and defense buff for 3 turns, a 50% crit damage buff for 3 turns, and a 50% MP charge for somebody on your team. Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that, and we know what it looks like when it does. So bring Waiver everywhere. General battles? Bring Waiver. Farming? Bring Waiver. Boss fights? Bring Waiver. Challenge quests? Bring Waiver. Are all the enemies riders? Bring Waiver anyway. Hey, aren't you glad servant unions aren't a thing in the Nasuverse? And you already know what his MP does, you've all seen it a million times over the course of the last year. Level his attack buff first, then his defense buff, and then his crit damage buff. Give him any support CE of your choice like 2030, Ideal Holy King if you really want, or any miscellaneous CE like Bond CEs or Mana Prism Shop CEs, since it's not like he really needs actual combat CEs, because his whole utility is tied to his skill set. Because if you're using Waiver as a DPS, I'm sorry, buddy, but you're doing it wrong! Tamabe is your arts addiction enabler. If you've liked arts teams even before she got put into the game, you'll probably never use any other team again. Her main gimmick is her NP. The more she spams her NP, the faster everyone can spam their skills and their own NPs. Put her into an arts team for maximum arts memes, and enjoy watching Vlad Kazikli bay people into oblivion. Fox's Wedding and Curse provide even more support on top of her ridiculous MP mechanics, and Shapeshift helps keep her alive so that she can still be around to provide even more support for the team when they really need it. The basic bread and butter arts team is Tammy and Waiver, and throw in an arts DPS servant of your choice. You can also swap out Waiver for Jean or Media Lily depending on your preference of stall arts flavors. Mix and match to see which team's your favorite, and let the arts meme consume your soul. Level Fox's Wedding, and then either Curse or Shapeshift, whichever skill you value more. And give her Fomocraft, though it's more for the MP generation and not necessarily for the damage, or MP generation CEs themselves, since she needs to be able to spam her MP like a motherfucker. 2030 isn't bad either if you want some extra star gen support, and of course, if you have it, Fam Club for even more arts memes. Plot Monk is proof that more people would be cool with religion if people like her were the ones they saw practicing it. She's a DPS caster who can spam her NP even though it's a buster with the help of her first and third skills and her caster deck. and she's very useful for taking out any assassin enemy who's got a lot of health, because before her, we only had berserkers to rely on, and that was a little annoying. Remember that her third skill prevents her team from getting any debuffs, and this applies to debuffs that they inflict on themselves. So things like self-stun that John and Fran put on themselves as a result of using their MPs, Han's defense debuff that he puts on himself when he uses his third skill, all these things do not apply when Sanzo uses her third skill. Just make sure to use it first, because she can't remove debuffs if they've already been applied, because then that would make it a debuff clear, and that's not what her third skill does. She's got a taunt, too, to protect her team for one turn, but focus on making her a DPS caster, since that's what she's mainly built to do with their single target buster MP that can be spammed. Level high speed chanting first, then Sanzo's teachings, and then her taunt, and give her Fommelcraft, Sumo, MP generation Cs, or MP damage Cs. Don't be fooled, kids! That's a dirty old man in Mona Lisa's body. And yes, it's just as lewd as it sounds. Leo is good as a farming caster and not much else, but considering the fact that she has 2 MP damage buffs, 2 MP charge skills, and the distinction of being FGO's first 5-star caster with an AoE MP, she's a damn good one. At the very least, you'll use her a ton in that new Lantern node that'll open up with Camelot. Also, just as food for thought, when she activates her self-MP buff, it should have showed it activating right after she puts on her glasses. Thank me later. Level Pioneer first for the same reason that you leveled it first on Drake, then Natural Born Genius for the stronger MP buff, and then Natural Body. And give her MP damage CEs or starting MP charge CEs to have her farm all the things! We good on casters? Alright, cool. Next are the assassins. If you needed proof that lollies make bank for DW and you can't use Abigail because she's not in the game yet, here's some right here. Rules of Nature is the best star gen in the game, which gives her some immunity to the quick extinction known as Merlin. If you ever get a question, that's something along the lines of, I need a star gen servant, who do I bring? Jack is the answer to that, and accept no substitutes. Well, unless you're a free-to-play, in which case, why are you even watching this video? She's also a great anti-female rider or berserker assassin thanks to her MP gimmick, and she can spam her MP on top of it. And she's got some light utility with her second skill that manually removes enemy buffs and reduces their crit chance, and her third skill that's a heal with a very short cooldown. And keep her in her first Ascension form, otherwise you're a terrible parent and you should feel bad. If you don't, maybe your friendly neighborhood police officer can help you with that. Level her quick buff, and then her heal, and then her crit chance debuff. And give her imaginary round, sumo, or MP damage CEs, or if you somehow don't think Jack's star gen is quite enough, 2030 or Be Elegant. A Saber face who's even more of a meme than Daishori Girl is, all because DW had to make her a lousy fucking assassin. Definitely not Saber is a support assassin. She's got a delayed AoE stun and good star gen, though if you wanted star gen, why not just bring Jack? And while her third skill is technically not bad, in almost all cases that you're using MHX, you're probably using her to fight riders, not Sabers. The same can be said of her MP. She deals extra damage against Saber faces, but how often are you going to find yourself fighting against these 4? The long and short of it is that if DW wants to properly buff MHX, all they need to do is change your class from Assassin to Archer. Unfortunately, MHX is a fucking meme, and that's all she's ever gonna be, so they'll never do that. Level fire support, and then instinct since it eventually does get a buff and becomes semi-decent, and fuck Galaxy Meteor Sword unless you're adamant about living the meme and using MHX against Sabers, then in which case level Galaxy Meteor Sword first since MHX will need all the help that she can get. Give her imaginary round, sumo, street choco maid, or MP damage CEs for offense, and 2030 or Be Elegant for support. You can also use her max bond CE if you're going Saber hunting, or if you're just a fan of the MHX memes. Ibuki Suika just wants a fucking drink, dammit. Tentacle Grape Oni is an arts AoE assassin, which means that you can finally farm those goddamn riders without having to use Phantom or Berserkers. She's also a support assassin with a Charisma, a Charm, and a Defense debuff, and an MP that inflicts a ton of debuffs and Skill Seal on an enemy, very useful. and a Guts just in case she gets focused by the enemy team. Stick her in an Arts team so that she can protect Tamabe from those annoying fucking riders. Level Charisma or the Charm, whichever is your preference, and then Guts for the lower cooldown. And give her Formalcraft, Street Chocomaid, or Sumo for damage, and MP Generation Cs for MP spam, Burning Love Story for the extra charm chance success, if they have synergy that is, and Be Elegant or 2030 for additional star gen support. On to the Zerks! Golden is your archetypal berserker. Come in and smash. Tap those red cards, baby. Yeah, feels good, doesn't it? So naturally, he's one of those mindless berserkers who just does a lot of damage and just fizzles out towards the end. But there's one thing that redeems him, and that's his second skill, which is a 50% battery. Because of this, he becomes, like anyone else who's got a 50% battery skill, a god tier farming Zerk. And the fact that there are a lot of events that feature 50% starting MP charged event CEs makes it all the sweeter. The Da Vinci event was a perfect example. Level Animal Communication first, then Monstrous Strength, then Natural Body, and give him either LZO, Sumo, or starting MP charge CEs so that he can go John Cena on some poor soul. Slayer is the opposite of Golden Boy. He's an arts berserker, so no pressing all those bright red cards for you. He's a pretty mediocre berserker on his own because of his deck and his skills, since they're not what a typical berserker should ideally have. But that's only until you stick him into an arts team, because then he can start spamming his MP and keep doing big damage over a long period of time, damage that tends to add up pretty quickly. Throw in a couple buffs for him to make use of, and suddenly Alucard starts looking pretty good. Remember kids, vampires have class. You all know that my favorite arts team is Tam, Vlad, and Waver, and you should be able to see why. Level Bloodsucker first, but when he gets a second interlude that buffs his morph skill into Legend of Dracula, start leveling that next, and then finally Guts. And give him Formalcraft, Sumo, MP Generation, or MP Damage CEs, or his Max Bond CE if you have it. Nurse Joy is a support berserker, which is as absurd as it sounds. She's a medic berserker with a pathetic attack rating and an MP that doesn't do any damage, but she does have 2 heals with her first skill and her MP, which also clears party debuffs, and post interlude, she can also basically make the enemy team do 0 damage with their MPs by cutting their attack and their MP damage in half. She's also got a targetable 3-turn 50% buster buff, so kinda like Fox's Wedding minus the heal, because she's already got 2 heals anyway. Which means that if this asshole didn't exist, Nightingale would be a lot more viable than she currently is. Funnily enough, a Tama, Nightingale, and Waver team could be a gimmicky stall team since Nightingale does provide a party debuff clear, which is something that neither Tama nor Waver can do. Level Angel's Cry, then Nurse of Steel, and then Human Comprehension. And give her HP regen CE so that she can try to keep herself alive with her own MP, or Gentle Affection for stronger HP regen from her MP and first skill. And her Max Bond CE is also a good support option too. This is what happens when you have Ku listen to too much 9 Inch Nails and My Chemical Romance. Having the thought around doesn't help either. Dino Ku is a survival berserker with protection from arrows and a Guts, and his first skill causes him to take less damage since he's debuffing the whole enemy team's attack. He can get away with having a skill set that doesn't include any attack buffs because it's tied to his MP overcharge, which also allows him to get a defense buff of equal value for good measure. So have fun tapping all those red cards with him, just make sure to tap a couple of skill buttons before you do, and he should be fine. Level Protection from Arrows for the lower cooldown, then Madness of the Spirits, and then Guts. And give him offensive CEs like LZO or Sumo, or toss him Volumen for some extra protection. He'll need it when he's dealing with Maeve. Ever had an embarrassing parent? You'll learn to love him with Raiko around. Raiko is one of the most versatile 5-star berserkers in NAFGO, or just FGO in general. An AOMP with 5-star stats, a damage-focused skill set with emphasis on anti-demonic and anti-earth or sky, and Eternal Arms Mastership, along with a 2A-2B deck. This makes her useful for farming, boss rush challenges, general battles, and just about anything short of the most difficult challenge quests. She's so versatile, in fact, you can stick her in an arts team with Talmo and she'll still kick ass. Level Mana Burst, then Mystery Killer, and then Eternal Arms Mastership, and give her LZO, hell, Formal Craft could even work, Victor, Atumbra, Sumo, or MP Generation or MP Damage Cs for offense, and starting MP Charge Cs for farming. And finally, we move on to the last category of 5 stars, the extras. The best damn tank in the game. Too bad she doesn't have a taunt. But she doesn't really need it, since her MP gives a party-wide invul, so who needs a taunt when you can just make everyone invincible for 1 turn? Just be careful with the self-stun, though eventually that won't be a thing anymore. Her skill set is also geared for challenge fights since they're mainly anti-servant, and you usually fight enemy servants in challenge quests. So start feeding her those hearts already if you want her to be the best support tank that she can be. You're not a cardboard box now, are you? Level her servant stun, then revelation, then true name discernment, and give her formal craft or other MP generation CEs so that she can spam her MP faster, 20-30 for additional star gen support, HP regen, and HP buff CEs, or Iron Will training for more tankiness. Vessel of the Saint is useful if you don't want to have to deal with her self-stun. And of course, taunt Cs for setup and face tanking. The other ruler who isn't a waifu, but he's a husbando, well, to some people at least. Catholic Priest Dude's niche is in challenge fights, since there, you tend to run into enemy servants who like spamming buffs a lot, and they tend to get really kind of annoying. So Amakusa can remove their buffs first, and then dunk them with a black hole, and then apply a crit chance down to everyone so that your own team can't get critted for 3 turns. So he's your personal middle finger to DW for designing those god-annoying challenge quests. Other than that, he's like a less useful Jean, whose skills are even more situational, and can't tank as well since he doesn't have as much HP. Though he's still got a lot anyway, just because he's a ruler. Level God's Resolution first, since it does get a buff later that gives Amakusa a mana burst to use with his MP, which is nice. And then level Baptism Rite for the stronger MP charge, and then Revelation because it's not much better than Instinct. Give him LZO, Sumo, MP Damage CEs, or a Sealed Designation Enforcer if you want Amakusa to be your DPS, or 20-30 for additional star gen support along with Revelation. If you want him to be a temporary face tank, then consider some of the taunt CEs to buy your team some time. This edgelord makes Arjuna look like a fucking pussy, as expected of someone who's drawn by the guy who does the Danganronpa art. Eddie doesn't really have a niche, unless you count him as a sweep or a wave clear, but even then Berserkers are better than him at it because he's an Avenger. And how many class advantages do Avengers have again? He's basically DW's guinea pig at designing an Avenger, one that failed unfortunately, and they didn't even buff him at all either after the fact. He's fun to watch though, I guess, throwing fucking lightning kamehamehas everywhere. It's just, why get him when Jalter is a thing? So just use him for general battles or farming if there are berserkers to farm. That's all Eddie Boy really can do, sadly. Level Determination of Steel first, and then either Golden Rule or Desperation from Wisdom, it's up to you. And give him Imaginary Round, Launch Order, or Sumo for damage, Seal Designation Enforcer for crits, though avoid putting him with Riders or Archers if you're gonna do that, or starting MP Charge Cs for farming. Now this is an Avenger. Of course DW had to make a waifu, the strongest servant in the game. Highest attack value in the game and a Buster crit meme. Did someone say meta? Daily reminder that this servant was the result of Kasger Gills' IRL fanfic. Use her as a crit Avenger. Give her star gens, avoid pairing her with archers or riders, and watch her go to town. Or just give her Bryn because you think Bryn is a better sister for Jalter than John is. And if there's a boss, pop her mana burst and beat their heads in. Just make sure to babysit your edgy burnt French toast, since she's got very low HP and she can melt really fast, just like your typical emo high school tsundere. Remember, take care of your tsundere and she'll take care of you. Well, that's the hope anyway. Level Ephemeral Dream or Charisma first, or level Self Mod first if you want to do some crit memes with her. And give her Elzio, Victor, Sumo, Atumbra, or Sealed Designation Enforcer, or MP Damage CEs for damage, or Volumen to protect the waifu. And those are all the 5-star servants in the game. Whew, that took a long time. I'm fucking tired. I hope you enjoyed the video, and of course, there will be another update when more 5-stars join the game for us to play around with. Like maybe next year or something, I don't know. But until then, deuces. I'm gonna go fucking pass out now.